Setting new perimeters on any level is a really position locations of those settings of a challenge. Challenge and sequence locations of all set location, all levels of division. The rotation surface and high calculation line interference. For example, Popo. Right? Popo is going through a lot of set locations, a lot of transformation line settings. To understand anything through set location, understand its dimensional set line, where it is through source. High channels of operation locations. Now it's recognized in all communication when it comes into the density setting, where it has to really surface and get in a position of balance, right? So the one thing we all have to balance is the mind. How do you balance the mind like the grounds? Center settings, high center line location all measured. What is a scale line setting? What's a graph line calculations? What is a laser connection to a grid set location? What is a laser graph line position, right? So all this is inside you. Everything is inside of you for information applications. Right? We all have to recognize our set lines and where we are. The body is nothing but a reaction set location. That's it, nothing else. It's just consciousness. Okay? So let's get down to brass tacks here. Really understand the perimeters and lines of securities and measures and scales and balance. Life is about balancing you. This isn't balance. This isn't balance. This is balance. To communicate with each other, it's not this. It's not this. It's not this. It's not this. Okay? It's this. You communicate with each other. Eye line. Head up. Straighten back. Looking straight. Scan. Remote. So you have to really understand how this all works for you inside locations, right? This helps you in all channel position. For example, when I pick up a cup, right? That symbols all calculation of where it is, the track location. What are we connected to? We're coming into 36, right? There's the Fibonacci. Right? And if you look really close, don't look at the cup, look at me. Always look behind the set lines. You'll see 3 and you'll see 6. So you'll see it spinning. Right? You'll see it coming in and out. So when you look at something, you look at the screen. This is a screen. This is a box. This is a data setting. It comes out. See, it's out now, right? Everything has its own avatar set location. Everything has its own unit and set location. Everything has its own perimeter. Everything has its grounds. Everything has its power, and everything has its atmosphere. Okay? So we all have to understand how this works. You're the same way. You're the grounds and powers in the atmosphere of your set locations. Grounds. Guys, this is grounds. You have to ground the minds of space in hologram setting, right? To anything set location, you have to understand how to balance that out. If you can't balance it out, it's going to tip. Okay? So think of that. What's your mind? What is your mind doing? That's what it's doing every single day. Whoa, 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 right? Topsy-turvy, right? Always find a scale setting in set location, high position locations, right? So it's all recognition and communication when you come into your reversion location of channels. Now I set up laser screens. I set up laser graphs in 70 lines at 72 position locations. Now the interline calculation system is in spot. Now spot channel line interference is position near moon lines. That's in a cluster interference. Now we come into calculations when it comes into all snowy grass screens. This centers your position locations into black and white line calculation system of colorations of change, changing direct signal locations. Okay. Now center calculation line setting. Know exactly what you set up through. This is all levels of spot channels. These are laser lines as spot line position of division through laser location of graph lines. Direction of time streams, heights and locations and geometric location channels. The operation surface is set location, position locations in one line. So we basically put business locations, all right? It's like connecting the dot settings. Direction time setting and rotation surface. All right, so this is what it modifies how line chemistry cells. Erection of time sequence opens all channel operation streams. Lacing line communication system in track location setting. Okay. Now, if you look really close, you can see intelligence. You're always in a formation location setting. All right, so as the spot channels and the rotation surface sets line parameters and heights to the location height position, it opens all set locations. Now, it's disappeared, but it's still there. If you look really, really close, you can still see the design, right? Going beyond is knowing what you can see. So it's like blink your eyes. Just blink your eyes like that. Your theta lines are changing position. See? You can actually still see the picture. All right. So, for example, if you get a communication line setting and you get a face recognition of all set location that's black and white, right? And you scan for about 1 minute, okay? And that set locations, you take your right and left lines of your eye line position parameters, bring it out position location, flash it on the wall, you'll see it in color. So you have to understand how to use the snowy graph settings. Erection of time sequence is all level position locations. All right, for example, when you get position locations, point setting. Okay, so I'm going to show you again. Everything is a geometric line setting. You have to add the energetic patterns into your T reception locations. All right, everything has a spot channel and erection location at DNA setting. It's complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun once you understand locations. All right. Now, each one has a line calculation to its own pi. Now we're going to direct the signals and set calculation. So when we get into that position locations, now the center line, the rotation spin, is going to send the line position. So it's all allocated position locations when you set a channel line and stream locations in a triangulation. All right. Center box lines, we set locations. So we got to come into triangulation sets. Setting calculation line interference. Okay, so setting position locations into downshift line cross locations. Now, it's called a geometric line stream. Now, geometric location sets lines of all set locations and parameters of 3 set locations. I'm setting triangles in 3 sets. Okay, everything's in a 3 set location setting. Now, once you understand set lines of communication, everything comes into position. So don't exactly have to set it up through frames and all direct signals. Now, directing signal location is to understand how to use it through adaptation, all through graph lines. Okay. Now, putting this all together is the direction locations where you come into image, the image to its rotation surface that allocates its time stream in direct location signals. Okay. Energetic graph line streamlines, solar graph interference in set locations high setting, direction of time speeders, land speeders, rotation spin cycles, center generation streamlines, line connection high interference, track line calculation setting in direct location signals. Everything is set up position of perimeter in set location setting. The direction and time line sequence has to be in a direct signal into graph line into a road graph stream in set locations. Energized line setting in position. Operation to signal in its location system. Okay. Now, you look really close, you can see the intelligence. All right. You're always in frame. You're always in set locations. So this is all calculation system, but it's not in this line setting. It's in this position. Okay. Remember I said we're going to go through the cloud line setting rotation? So this is an energetic cloud. Okay. So when you go outside line interference, this is what you see. That's how it's all set up. All right. So as it comes in line communication system, we're going to interline calculation to 70s, 70 line interference, 70 line position locations. That's a 70 box into 0 line of 1 track location. All right. Now, the center calculation line interference comes in all set locations. Now, you have to be really careful on what you're doing through position. Changing direct line signal, this is all through graph lines. Now, it's extremely complicated because you guys don't understand these things. But this is the connection line center and what comes into all calculations of clouds, right? How it changes direct location of signals, right? It's changing its image. So you're changing your shape, you're changing shapes. So you're changing the shape, changing the coloration, 1 position locations, and 2 in snowy graph of 3 set locations in parameter line set location geometric patterns. Now, every time you change the shape line, it changes the cloud, changes the structure of its design into higher calculation. See? Changes its color. So now you understand how clouds change color in face recognition. So you're just adding sequence locations of patterns, putting position locations, higher level settings in set location. See? You're adding intelligence, right? Now, the membranes and center calculation system is a triangulation of 3 set location settings. That's 4 in set line conditions. So that's 1 in perimeter, 2 in sector, 3 in calculation, and 4 in track location setting. Okay. Now, how to set up the graph line stream is a recalculation line position. Now, once you get into that line interference, you understand how to use clouds in set locations. This, every time you say cloud, this is what it is. It changes its shape through your thought settings. Recognition of time sequence. Rectangle line interference. See, I'm adding. High calculation streamline. See, I'm adding. See, it's changing the cloud, right? So it's all about coloration line interference, the snowy graph interference line, track lines. It's recognition of time sequence. It opens all perimeter line sectors. You guys are in 72 set locations now in set line setting. So the axis cloud is connected to your brainwaving pattern. That's electrical setting. So it's a communication and fusion of 2 line setting and a bracket location set line. The direction line calculation system is position locations. Now, this is where it changes the 1 line setting to bracket location and interference. The track line communication comes into 2 line. We circle the 3 line, we circle the 4 line. That changes position locations, right? Direction of time sequence. So this opens up windows and doors in set locations. Okay, direction of time sequence. So what you understand is that the actual cloud outside is nothing but a geometric pattern. So every time you change a dot, you change the shape. UFOs come in and set line communications into higher level settings in direction of time sequence. That's what you see through a map location. Okay? Now, I really want you to understand how this is all set up now. Setting line communication is a 1 line setting. You come into a flux capacitor. See the flux capacitor? The center line position? That's our energy core line, rotation surface. Every time you set a line communication, the cloud disappears and reappears to another dimensional set line. So all directions of time sequence. See? Flux capacitor. 1 signal location, 1/2. Triangulation opens up another portal set location setting in recognition of time sequence. Now that time sequence changes the cloud lines, rotation surface. That's how you actually see it move. And when it moves, your geometric line setting and every door in set location changes the shape. Every time you set a communication or a thought line, it rotates its surface. It sets up high perimeter position location, higher levels of travels. It changes its line communication system in all timeline sequence and all pi recognition of time sequence in 4 set locations, right? Generation line stream comes into all set location, 12 line setting, cross, higher calculations in position. Recognition of sequence and set line communication. So really understand how to get in your recharging when you're actually closing your eyes and everything is coming in. Signals, high setting, high position, all levels of 0 to 9. The 9 line setting line position location is 60,000 measures. That's 60,000 temperature readings in set locations and perimeters. Parameter line calculation, line interference, change the coloration patterns. Direction of time sequence location comes into its own pyramid of its set location setting. Triangulation position of force recognises all communication set lines and another dimensional line position of travel in set location high setting in all set location. All right, time by equation. Now, setting you guys up in your 72 line string, you have to really understand how to use the brainwave pattern. The recognized high setting line of position locations. Let's go through another cloud set. So clouds are set up locations of this, right? Now, in position location, you can actually vortex chamber. When I matrix locations, you can actually go from traveling one to another, right? And then you can in position center and then disappear here and then reappear here into another cloud setting in rotation surface. Vortex chamber set locations, right? So once you understand that, you have line communication flux capacitor, right? Center calculations opens up another portal in set location setting. Direction of time sequence lines its position of traction in 3 set locations, right? Sets of triangulation, 3 set line connection, right? So this is you in set location, your avatar, right here, right there. Scanning line setting in 3 center perimeters, okay? Open up sequence location of cloud lines, changing direct location of its cloud in set location, another setting, right? Over there, set location, right? Direction of high setting comes into all set locations, right? So direction of high setting line and position location comes into a watch. You see the watch? See the actual watch? You see it? See? Now, once you understand that line perimeter line interference, that sets line position of 3, position location of 6 and 7 and 8. Diamond core line setting line interference in set locations. This opens up another channel operation line setting into another diamond core set locations into 4 set line settings. And surface. Surface locations high setting. So in that calculation line interference, it sets up new perimeters into 72 in set location. Direction of high setting line opens up its Fibonacci of another swirl in its opposite direct locations. Higher channels its line calculation. The avatar goes in position, travels here, travels here, travels here, travels through its own geometric pattern, a rotation surface, right? So, done by equation. All right, so understanding how to go through cloud change. Cloud chain line interference is a direct location setting. Okay, so let's say you got a position location of 2 lines into 3 sets, into 4 set locations. These are the cloud line settings. All right, so you're here in set locations, again, traveling. Okay, that's you traveling. Now you're scanning 1 position locations in 1 line. That's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 equal line conditions of 1 box, line position of 0, 1 set location. That's 1 cloud change. Now, changing line direct locations comes in higher setting. So this comes into all position. You take the 10 line into 11, 11 into 12, 12 into 1, equal line conditions of ground lines. So changing ground lines in rotation interference into 10 sequence location of patterns. So the coloration line calculation system is the placebo cortex. Now the placebo changes line settings, okay, to its cerebral. This is a complacement line stream. Now the complacement line comes into the constellation path, setting calculation, and all direction of time sequence, entire calculation line settings, rotation surface, right? So understanding the energetic graph, the streamlines and set location high setting interference is understanding of 1 UFO line rotation at the top set location into 2 set line setting, direction of time sequence. Laser direction, set locations. Laser direction, crisscross location settings. See the outline condition UFOs? So you see the UFO here, you see the UFO here in set locations. You see the UFO here and UFO here. 4 line setting and rotation surface in set location setting in high track lines of geometric of its cloud set location. Right? Direction of time sequence. Now getting that time sequence location comes into another coloration path in set location of scan lines. See that? Scanning center opened up another rotation spin in set location setting in ground line rotation. Setting a ground line rotation interference is setting a coloration line stream. The coloration line stream sets higher position locations of calculations. Let's go into coloration because we're in securities of 2 lines. Let's go into scan position location in a red line set rotation. See the red? Now we're going to change the circle line rotation surface. This is going to change the high set location of its angle into a higher levels of perimeter into a flux capacitor change line channel in open stream location. See that? Time sequence location. Let's go into green line setting rotation. Let's go in fusion. Crossing over line setting. See it crosses over? Direction of time sequence. Hold on through calculation. All right. So you can actually see the drawing. Line signature patterns in set location high setting. Direction of time sequence. See it? And then it's about to fade and travel in set locations. See? Light signature line streams. See that? So it's scanning line settings, electrical line and infusion. Now this is where we come into compressors, line channels, rotation surface, high center location and lines of power, direction line calculation system, and center position. 3 set line settings, right? So we come into that lines, we come into energetic graph lines and rotation surface. Higher levels, this is where it comes into vortex chamber stream. See that location? Direction on the high set line connection to high setting in all its system locations when it comes into center line position, into higher calculations. Setting position location high set line interference, right? Direction of time sequence. Now the 2FEO line rotation interference sets communication to the moon. Change coloration path again, go into black line setting. Moon set location here. Okay, we go in position locations. Okay, so here's the moon in set location. Now the moon's going to set line of calculation stream. It's going to laser direct its signal locations and put a platitude line stream. That's a line calculation at 72 measure. 1 position locations. Laser direct line setting. North cross stream. All right. So let's go into higher levels of laser line position. Right. So the moon shifts over here in set locations. That's where it comes into space and time through east and west in set locations. Right. Center calculations into its pi at recognition setting. The moon has to understand the surface through theta line rotation to its box position locations. Now this channels its line calculations into position location higher setting. The rotation surface sets another line communication stream line into all set line setting rotation. Setting calculation system in another track location, all levels of 3 sets. Direction of time sequence, all levels of high set location. Travel position locations comes into all position of track lines. Recognition of time sequence and its time stream. High calculation modification comes into a 0 line rotation. Coming into the lacing lines, receptor calculations into electrical line communication. High center line interference comes into an OR line rotation in set locations. Generation string lines into 12 line signals. All right, putting platitude line connections in a 12 line measure in set location of ground line rotation. Okay, open up sequence patterns. Now that all line calculation sets lines of 7 in position of triangulation, 7 on top, 2 in the center, 1 on the ground line, and 0 on operation surface. 7, 2, 1. Now we open up to the 2 line sector. This opens another box locations into an atom line rotation, another atom line rotation, into another atom line rotations, into 3 box, 4 set line calculations into 5, and into position of 6 in set location setting. All right. Now we take the 6 lines into 3 in set locations. 6 lines equal lengths of 6 equals location of 7, 7 location of 5. 5 line centers, you guessed it, 12 line setting, rotation DNA, setting direct location of signals in set locations. So this puts you in position of an energetic cloud stream in set locations. Okay? Now, try to understand the recognition of time sequence. Very complicated, but you look really close to see the intelligence. All right? So we're in a 36 line setting. That's black location of 3, black location of 6, Merkaba channel up, Merkaba position location of down, shift line stream. Direction of time sequence, higher calculation, high setting locations, higher measure. Calculation line interference, crosses stream into 6 position locations. Center calculations, coming into the moon inside location. Moon's at the bottom now. Shifts over line setting, shifts upstream line in a 3 set location setting. 3 sets in the center, 6 is in position location, higher level set rotation. Now in that calculation line interference, the 3 line and a rotation surface sets a Fibonacci swirl rotation setting, sets a calculation line of operation to its signal. Now the 3 sets ground lines in position of 2, in position of 1, and 0, equal line condition 1, 2, 3, line condition system 1, 2, 3, and 6. Now 3 line setting crosses over, 6 line position of parameters and parameters, line calculation high setting. Now this puts position locations into negative, a positive, negative, positive, and positive or negative. Line calculation system into 36 line setting. 3 goes back in set locations in heart set line position. 3 line center line in position east, 3 line position of the west, 3 line position of north. In position of the new triangulation line calculation set line, high setting. Rotation service in set location high system. No, 36 lines of volumes is setting line position locations into your measures. Now this scales its high setting locations to higher calculations. All right, in set locations. Right? Version of time sequence, scanning lines of zero line rotation. Setting calculations into 4 waving path lines set in line calculation streams. Direction of time sequence. The time sequence is extremely important when you set position location of track lines, guys. Now, the line calculated streamline understands its line position locations into 3 set location high setting. All right, see the 3 of the UFO line rotation, setting calculation settings. There it is, right? There's a row graph. Now, the row graph is set up at 2 in line set location, new perimeter line interference. We come into another Fibonacci swirl and set locations. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up the cloud channels of operation of 72 set locations. See how I'm changing the frames every time. So that's what it is, but it's a constant flow. It's a constant continuous line sending in one same inset locations in a 24 signal in seconds per channel per stream. It calculates over pi in direction of time sequence, puts a higher calculation setting into all set locations. Puts you guys in a 72 line setting in your theta line rotation, the moon line rotation interference, flux capacitor fluctuation line setting locations in north, south, and east. Diamond core shift, line set, line position locations, and perimeters. Line calculation system put you guys in the Fibonacci line sequence. Swirls and calculation line position locations, 6 over pi, 36 line calculations, and phenomenal in set location high setting, direction of time sequence locations. All right? All right. So that's done in set locations. Disappeared, but it's still there. See? Okay. Still there. See? See how it changes position? So it's amazing once you understand what the mind is going through. It's a recognition line setting. Now, calculation height and position location has its purpose in all levels of the Fibonacci swirl set location. Now, setting that at position location comes into a clock line. You have to set up a 72 clock line setting now. Okay, because you guys are in a 7 line. So we set up a 72 computer. 1 position location is all levels of 1 measure. There's the computer setting, right? Computer sets a center line and set locations, right? The operation surface and set location of 3 set line conditions. Now, we get another UFO line rotation, scans the center of its computer line rotation. Line connection high stream sets line communications into its own pi direction of setting. Okay? Now, that's positions of 3, center of 6, and position of 2. 1 in line setting in 12 line position. All right? So we take the 12 in position of 6. 6 lines equals 12. 12 line setting. 12 rotates its 12 equals lines of 3. Setting location of 7. 7 location of 5. 5 position locations, you guessed it, back in 12 set locations. DNA and set location setting. Rotation service is a recognition high setting. Now, putting track lines and communications really understand how to set lines in high setting interference. Setting direct location of signals in set locations. Energize line sign location of cloud line rotation. Now, getting in that line, you cross the signal locations. Now we take the 3 measure and set location of 6. We put the 3 lines in the center line, 6 in rotation surface, inset line conditions. Now this is where we change the angle point locations. That's 1 equals 1 angle into a Fibonacci swirl, inset location through its diamond, line condition equal location of its box, setting direct signal locations, ascendant high setting. Versus the time sequence, take the triangle, we take the box, we take the equal line conditions, we take the line interference, we take the Fibonacci, and we take the box line, we take the Merkabah set locations in the 1 set location setting, rotation of graph lines. See the graph line rotation? Now that's where we come into flywheel interference. Flywheel interference is the regular locations when it comes into its pi channel. Now we're going to change the high set location of crystal lines into set location. Now we have 72 line parameters and set lines at high setting. We change the graph lines in rotation surface. This puts all the communication system into track line calculations. Now, center calculation interference, we change the coloration path into red set locations. Pi recognition of time. Okay? Comes into this position locations. All right? In a 3 waving position locations of cycles. All right, so the direction of 3 lines. So 3 sets line calculation. 3's at the top. Center position of 6 in set locations. Center line calculation system. So we finish the pi. So that's 1 position of perimeter, 2 line sectors, and 3 set locations of volume. 1, 2, 3. Center calculations high center location comes into 4 center line center set positions into 5 set line conditions, 5 sets line calculations, and 5 sets of lines. So we bracket the 5, we bracket the 5, we bracket the 5, and 3 set location settings. Direction of time sequence. Now, in set location, how to understand how a crop circle comes into a full rotation surface in set location setting. Direction of the high line interference, coloration the center lines of security, and 3 set locations of 3 pies in set location high setting. This puts a laser line graph and line communication in its interference. The rotation surface in the set location high setting sets a line communication of its Fibonacci of all calculations, opens another line rotation of Fibonacci in the opposite set locations. High channels its line stream and 3 set line calculations to its perimeters in set location setting. Direction of time speeders. Now 3 sets lines of 3, 6 position locations, into 2, into 1, into 0 of operation signal and set locations. Center generation line interference comes into line stream in position location to a new flux capacitor in set location of 7 2 set location settings. The rotation surface, we change the coloration. Now the coloration line settings goes back into black line rotation, setting calculation line interference. So we come into 72, okay, in line communication 144, center position of 244, okay, waiting on signal, center calculations at 344 in set locations. Now the one perimeter line interference, we set line communications 144 stays on the ground, equal line communication of crystal. Crystal lines, equal lines of communication setting, rotation surface. Now get in the flywheel line rotation interference, we set up an alpha channel in 3 set locations, right? See the waves? We set up a delta line channel in position on other side locations. We set up a omega channel line position location into 4 set line conditions. And we set up the conditions of the gamma lines in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 set location settings, rotation surface, done by equation. All right, so it's very powerful when you start understanding how to set up perimeter position location of 72 settings into 36 line setting rotation surface in set locations into 72, 144, 244, waiting on signal of 344 set locations. Center generation line stream line position locations is all levels of channel stream. Now the channel stream in line calculation setting is really to understand how to set everything up in a rotation surface. Now coming in the gamma line rotation interference of Fibonacci swirl in set location setting. Now it's all about understanding how to break code lines in a box line rotation. All right. So we center calculation of Fibonacci swirls in 2 set locations. Now in perimeter and parameter it lines is communication, right? Now getting into that calculation system, we change it back into red because the power direction of time sequence changes its powers over in position locations of Pluto. Pluto sets line communication here in set location settings. Change the coloration path here. Higher position locations. All right. Here's Pluto in set locations. Right. Now Pluto sets the line communication in parameters. Center calculation. Okay. Direction line in a triangulation of 3 spot. Okay. Now that's 1 point, 2 point, and that's 3 set. 3 in position locations, 6 lines, 72 line centers at top sequence. Into line calculation 144, send communications into 344, send communication line position locations and all set line conditions. So we have a 24 line setting into position of 48 window. 48 window comes into line position locations. So that's negative or positive in set locations into 24 signal. Line position location of 0, ozone in set location of ground, and new set location high setting in center interference and track locations in position. Done by equation. All right. So it's really interesting when you understand how to set these things up through equation, guys. All right. So how are we doing through locations?